Hey, everybody, and welcome to our most recent episode of our executive webinar series. Super excited to bring one of my favorite people, an absolute icon in the selling space, good friend, CEO of the U.S. division of the Creation Agency. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to give it to him, Jack Kosakowski. Jack, how the heck are you, man?
Dude, I'm great, man. I'm just excited to be here and to, rap with you about what sales leaders need to be doing in 2018 as it relates to social, because I think this is something that they're all starting to get it, but they don't get it, right?
I think you're dead on, man. I think sometimes we turn it into this great debate, like, is it this or that? Is it, this or that, either or? But what I love about you, Jack, is you figured out an amazing way to take this whole world of social and make it a strategy. It's not a one size fits all. It's how do you connect with someone in a way that makes the most sense for them? Can you talk to me about just kind of an overview about what you do and at the Creation Agency and how you do it, and then we'll go from there into how we have social help.
Yeah, I mean, at Creation Agency, we're essentially a digital marketing agency. So we're looking at multi-channel ways to connect with your buyers, to get more visible, to get more valuable, and to get more connected, which is kind of like a new ideology of what I like to call people call the funnel, right? And there's different ways to go about that. And a lot of our strategy is incorporating leadership into the brand, because essentially what companies are trying to do is they're trying to make another logo stand out amongst a sea of other logos, all talking about themselves and just boring and, not standing out, not capturing anybody's attention, not getting any connections. So we kind of take a different approach, which is, let's use your leadership and let's connect your leadership to the brand, and inadvertently the brand will get the connection, which, from a marketing standpoint is the sales conversation.
Okay. Love it. So let's talk, man. I mean, the world has gotten more competitive. True or false?
True times 10.
True times 10. Harder to get a hold of people that are high value targets. True or false?
True times 10.
So what can a sales leader do to help a salesperson do more than just work harder? How do we do that?
I think, there's this whole thing about leading by example. I think, sales leaders today are kind of fighting this thing that like, oh, my salespeople don't need to be on social. That's just some place where Kanye rants and, Kim Ye is talking to Trump. But that's not the case, right? I mean, at the end of the day, your salespeople are going to be on social. There's tons of statistics that tell you that they're going to be there whether or not you want them to be there or not. So you have two options. Just like when you're in sales coaching, you can coach your salespeople how to cold call. You could coach your salespeople how to, move a deal through the sales process. But even more importantly, you can coach your salespeople how to leverage social media to drive attention with the right people using the right value and motive to drive a connection, which essentially leads to an offline sales conversation.
All right, so I want to talk about that. You and I both have had this conversation tons of time. We've talked tons and tons that outcomes are driven by process, right? You don't just clap your hands and hopefully that you get more sales. You don't just say, here's a new quota, go get it. So everything is process driven. How do you have social move away from this thing that just happens out there where you're surfing or tweeting or doing whatever? How do you make it process oriented? How do you work that into a process, Jack?
Well, from a sales leadership perspective, if you really want to build it into a true process, it's just like anything else. You got to go find the people that know what they're doing and have, and you've got to model it, right? Which means that usually you got to have people come in and help you and show you what needs to be done and build a real process. But I think, at the most simple level, if you think about if you're in sales leadership right now, what you share now and your visibility is your credibility. And when it comes to social media. So you think about your sales reps on LinkedIn all day, and you're sharing, and if you're a sales leader and you're sharing really good quality content that is educational and drives sales conversations and engagement online, they're going to watch your every move. What kind of content are you sharing? That's what kind of content they're going to share. What kind of engagement are you doing? That's what they're going to do. What type of content, what kind of video content are they creating, and what are they consuming? Because that's what they're going to share. That's what they're going to consume. So you kind of have to mirror and lead by example of what you do on social is essentially what your salespeople will take on, just like anything else in sales when you're in leadership.
So I want to pause on that. We're going to reinforce that one. I love what you just said. You got to lead by example, and what they see is what they're going to do. They're going to model whatever it is you're throwing down for them. So it can't be one of those things, just like anything in sales, what you're saying is don't just say do this. The greatest sales leaders are the ones that can say, let me show you how to make this call. Let me show you how to deliver a proposal. Let me show you how to do this stuff. You're telling me it's the same thing with social.
Yeah, I think, I think the problem, and one of the reasons even though I preach about and I preach and teach social selling, one of the things I realized when I came out of working at Acton as a regional sales manager, using social media to create, strengthen, and influence sales conversations when I was carrying a bag, was I realized that, like, yes, there needs to be a process, but like, we're making everything so complicated. If you watch anybody that does something very, very well, then you can model that. I mean, like, I remember in sales when I sat next to top performer, right? I would listen to the top performer on the phone call, and I didn't have to even get coached because I would just listen to what they were saying, and I would incorporate that into what I was doing in selling. I think social's the same way, right? So if somebody can watch people that they admire or they respect, like a sales leader, and they can watch how this is the stuff they're sharing. This is how they're using social media. Oh, they're going and engaging on potential prospects, and they're starting conversations online. Well, this is the whole idea that yes, you maybe need social selling training, but maybe you just need somebody that you can model, that you respect inside the organization, that you're supposed to be modeling anyways.
I love it. One of my favorite leadership tactics, you've heard me say this before, is you got to model awesomeness. Can you model what awesome looks like? And so that's a really good point, Jack. Are we modeling it as leaders? And so maybe you can turn it into a couple of strategies, some actionable things. What are some things leaders can do so they can start laying down this model of what awesome is? So what they start picking up inside the organization helps to make this thing all start to work at scale.
Well, I think the content that you share is the content that your sales reps will consume. So, we pound this thing into our salespeople's heads, like, you need to go learn more. You need to spend more time educating. But I think the problem is that a lot of salespeople, they'll get caught up in Facebook and looking at their ex-girlfriends, who she's dating, right? They'll get caught up in a lot of different things. On LinkedIn, they'll get caught up in, some Gary Vee stuff and motivational stuff. And while that's all great, that's the problem is that that's not actually going to help them move the needle when it comes to sales and doing their job. So as a sales leader, I think the first thing you need to do is, when you're on an airplane and you're reading a really good article about a trend that's happening in your industry that other CEOs want to read about, you share that, right? You just take the time and you take the minute or two after you consume content that's really, really good and really, really targeted for your industry, and you share that, right? I think that's the most simple step any sales leader could do. And you do that on a consistent basis, try to find 3 really good articles every day that you share. Now, there's another strategy here is like, okay, if you're a sales leader and you want your salespeople to learn something and you're connected with all of them on LinkedIn, which you should be, that's the first step, obviously. Go connect with all the people that you work with that are selling for you. Make them go create a profile if you haven't already. Have your marketing team look at it and make sure it looks good. Have them get recommendations. Do some very simple things. But then on the back end is like, start sharing the right content, start, making your own videos, thought leadership videos. Let me tell you something. One of the things that Rob does very, very well, and we run his marketing, so a little bit of a plug here, but I've told Rob this is like, get on camera and do the playbooks. 2 to 5 minute videos. Show people what you know that nobody else knows, and do it in a way that's not going to ask them for anything, but is going to give them enough curiosity and value to want to reach out and have a conversation with you. Here's the kicker though. Yes, from a business perspective, I can guarantee you that if you do that over time, it's 100% proven that you will get sales conversations with targeted people for your product. But even more important is you will educate your employees along the way as you do it. Because if your employees don't think like you do, they don't articulate like you do, and they don't understand the way that you process and information and the way that you articulate it, you are killing yourself by making that a training. You can do consistent training by creating this content and putting it on LinkedIn. Your sales reps will watch every piece of it, and they'll start to think like you. They'll start to talk like you. And it's an easy way to use social media as training along the way that actually has them go in and want to do it on their own time.
Jack, I'd never thought of that ever. That's really insightful. So to use this as a way to train and have people start to model I never thought of that. So that makes perfect sense to me. I can't believe I never even thought of that before. I mean, are you seeing that's one of the use cases that maybe people hadn't thought of? Is that starting to happen more often?
There's so many little things like this that I think, is just like aha moments for sales leaders. Like if you just
I mean, it's brilliant. Brilliant.
If you just broke down social media at the simplest form, you know, social media is social media, right? It's a social platform for learning, connecting, having conversations, giving value, taking value. I mean, there's so many different ways, but you know, your salespeople want you to lead by example. And I'll tell you that it's a lot easier when you get into a sale or you're trying to get into a sales conversation and somebody goes, you know what? I see your CEO everywhere. Damn. Or I see your VP of sales everywhere. That guy drops bombs. Like that guy drops wisdom every time, you know, and you go, oh, you know, Rob? Like, well, I don't know Rob, but I've been watching Rob's videos for the last 4 months because Jack's agency that's, you know, behind the scenes is running paid ads for pennies on the dollar and keeping Rob in front of every single potential buyer 6 months before they know they're ready to buy. You just made your salespeople's lives a lot easier, because I would rather be calling on people, if I'm a sales rep, that respect my VP of sales, my CRO, my COO, CEO. You're doing your salespeople a massive favor, and they will respect the hell out of you for that.
So I love where you just went. You're right. I mean, you have done a great job. I mean, cards on full disclosure, Jack, you do an awesome job helping us with our company's social strategy. And there's no doubt, I go lots of places and people say, man, I see you everywhere. And it's in large part because of the strategy you've put together on us that you're helping us execute. I think execute pretty well. I want to shift though, Jack. I want to ask some questions that you just made me think of. For sales leaders that are following this, are we at a point right now that the sales leader has a responsibility to actually help create content for the reps to not just consume but share? Is that a new responsibility for a head of sales?
I think it's huge. Like it's a PR dream, right? Because, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, credibility, how much is credibility worth in this day and age? And I think when I say credibility, I mean attention, you know, attention at scale. And you know, your salespeople are having a hard enough time getting somebody on the phone. How are you know, when they do get somebody on the phone, what are you doing to at least warm it up through attention? And PR, giving your salespeople an article to send in a cold email to say, hey, you know what? Our CEO, our VP of sales, our CRO just spoke, you know, just was interviewed on Inc. talking about what the next 5 years looks like in the industry that we're in, right? You know, waste management, for example. I know that's one of your guys' customers. Like, you know, waste management, you know, VP of sales is talking about the future of the industry and how it's going to go green, right? And you're trying to sell a green product. How much more brilliant is it? Because that's what buyers want, is credibility from leadership. And the salespeople need your help. They need your help building that credibility because they can't do it on their own. And majority of the time, it's not their job to do it on their own. So you got to give them the help. And this is kind of the new wave of marketing. I call it sales marketing because it's very, very strategic. And it's what content are you giving your salespeople as real valuable ammunition to start a conversation. And then here's the deal. The bigger deals, if somebody knows who Rob is and his salesperson can just get inside the deal, they can get it moving, they can get it through the sales process. How easy is it to go, hey, Rob, by the way, they read your content or they know who you are, they saw you speak. I would love to get you on this call because they would just love to have a conversation with you. You'd help me move this thing faster through the pipeline.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you say that. I was just on site with a customer yesterday, as you know, and when I got there, one of the people that walked into the meeting was like, hey, I just saw that video that you did on the 4 levers around sales improvement. I thought it was awesome. And they wanted to talk to me for a few minutes before we even got started about what we were doing. So that's a very relevant example that just happened to me yesterday.
Content creates conversation. This is the way the world that we're living in. I mean, there's nothing that creates more credibility than really, really good content. And if you can create credibility through content, that leads to good conversations. If you've got salespeople that are, you know, doing the right things on the back end and they're leveraging that stuff in a way that drives people to want to have a conversation versus being forced to have a conversation. I mean, it's the Gary Vee model, right? I mean, I don't want to, but you know, you gotta make sure that your leadership is everywhere all the time, creating massive amounts of value and wisdom. And it costs money to do that. And there's the way that we've been tracking that ROI with our customers is by saying, listen, whenever you make a cold call or you send a cold email and you have that first conversation, if they once mention that they've seen your CEO, your VP of sales, or whatever your executive team on anything that we've been doing and socially surrounding them, then you mark that in Salesforce. And you know what's crazy is like some of these customers, you know, they're going, oh my gosh, we haven't been doing that, but that's how now we're starting to track the ROI of attention is how did the conversation start?
So do you make that actually something that you track as part of your sales process and your CRM? Was there some kind of a social connect?
Yep. You create a field inside of Salesforce and they mark a box, right? Did that conversation start? Did they know who somebody on the executive team was? You could do it in your own, in your own way, but it's a great way to start to track the ROI of attention.
Cool. So leaders have a responsibility to make sure that they have relevant content. Does that change what the relationship with marketing is like? I mean, how do you do that? What's the right way to do that?
Well, here's the thing. So I think a lot of sales leaders, they'll say to themselves, well, I don't want my salespeople creating content. I don't have time to create content. I'm in the weeds, right? I've got 10 salespeople, 20 salespeople, 50 that I got to worry about. Okay, great. Then you know what, though? You're the only one that's in the weeds with the salespeople that hears the rebuttals over and over and over. And marketing is probably missing the mark. If I had a conversation with 10 sales leaders, they go, 9 out of 10 times marketing just not hitting the mark. Well, of course they're not hitting the mark. They're not in the weeds. They're not carrying a bag. They're not having these conversations every day like you are. So you need to start to tell your salespeople, let's start to write down the common theme of rebuttals that we're hearing, obstacles that are getting in our way. And you know what? I want you to write those down. I want you to put 5 bullet points. I want you to explain what you're trying to get across. And I want you to take that to the marketing team, and I want them to put that in your name, and I want you to post that on your LinkedIn. Vice versa, if you're a sales leader, you know what? You're hearing the same problems over and over and over. You know what? There's nothing better than you going to the marketing team and saying, we need to write about 5 ways that we're helping change the way that this happens in this industry. And here's the results from it. And you need to walk to your marketing team. You need to sit down with them, give them, you don't need to write it out. You don't need to know how to write content. That's why you have a marketing team.
Right.
You give it to them, you say, listen here, put this in my name. Let me post it on my LinkedIn publish, because I'll tell you right now what good sales leaders are doing and the ones that are dominating the markets, like Udi, me at Gong are a prime example of that, right? Like you guys, and you're in a really crowded space, but how are you getting conversations? You're getting it through content and credibility, and marketing's got to help support that instead of driving people to your blog, because nobody cares about your blog anymore. Let's be honest. Put that cool email link in there and say, here's an article that my VP of sales just wrote about the future of and how we're helping fix this. Drive them to your VP of sales LinkedIn, where he's got 7 enterprise competitors on there talking about how amazing he is and how their product is killing it. Get people away from companies, get people into the personal aspect, and start that way.
It's a good tactic. I like it. So let's go to something else that I've heard you talk about a ton. And social selling has evolved. It's emerged, it hit hard, it's evolved, and it's way past the place of, is this important? I mean, I think it's here. You got to do it. It's got to be something that you're good at.
Part of the cadence.
Yep, for sure. And we've hit that. How important is it? Because I'm all about coaching. How important is it for a leader to coach a rep that part of their career development is actually working on that personal brand? So that you just talked about how the leader needs to help build the company brand. How do they help a rep build a personal brand? Because we all know you got to do it. I mean, can a leader help them do it?
If the leader understands what they're doing enough, right? I mean, it's just like anything else. I think I've heard you say this, connect before you correct. But the problem is, if you don't know how to connect, how can you correct, right? So I think there's, this comes back to asking yourself and taking inventory as a sales leader is like, what does my toolkit look like as a leader? Where am I weak? And if you're weak in social, you're going to have a really hard time trying to go teach your salespeople how to build a personal brand. But what you can do as a sales leader, I think, is you can take the bull by the horns and you can go to your marketing team, or you can go, outsource and have somebody come in for the day and teach you what you need to know to teach your sales reps. I'm a bigger fan of a sales leader learning something first at the most minimal level, because I think that's all it needs. And then going and taking that wisdom and doing some training on it, some coaching on it, versus having a social selling trainer come in and, you spend $50,000 and 10 people out of 100 actually do it, right? Go learn it yourself and then teach that.
I think that the reason I bring it up, Jack, is I think for the most part, companies say we need to do this, but they kind of leave the rep on their own to figure out how to build kind of their brand and their following. Is this something that should be part of a coaching session, I guess? Is this something that they should be intentionally improving like every other part of sales?
I think it is. I don't know if we're there yet, right?
Okay.
I think, you know, you have to take inventory of what your sales team looks like. And if your salespeople, I think this is where your top performers come in, right? It's like,
Yep.
listen, are you a short-term sales rep? Or are you a long-term sales rep? Because personal branding depends on, and investing in that person is like, okay, do they have what it takes from a sales perspective? Because the thing about sales is, if you don't know how to sell, it doesn't matter how many people know who you are, right? I know a lot of people that have a big following that couldn't close a door if it hit them in their face, right? Um, so at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I've got salespeople, I've got stars, right? You guys
Yep.
call them stars.
Yep.
I've got stars that are crushing it. Okay, what's the one piece of the sales acumen that I can help them with? Is like, listen, you're a star. Let's work on your personal brand, because the only thing at this point is you just need more people to know who you are so you can have more sales conversations, because your weakness is not closing more deals. It's not this or that. We just need to get you more sales conversations. So let's teach you how to use personal branding as a way to drive that. And also it helps the company indirectly, right? The more people that know who your employees are, I call it the stars of value. Why doesn't marketing make salespeople famous? Why not? Why is marketing scared? Why are you scared for your salespeople to be famous?
Great question.
Because, I mean, anybody that I know that's famous, right? Famous equals attention.
Yep.
And when I say that, I'm not using it in, you know, Kimye, Kanye terms.
No, we're with you, man. We're with you.
But I mean, like, you know, let's use an example. All the authors that you read about, that you're reading their books on a daily basis, and everybody talks about them, you know, a little
Yep.
fluff game going on. But the moral of the story is, like, those guys, they're not better salespeople than you are. And I would argue, I know some of them, they're obviously not that good at salespeople, but they're very, very good at marketing themselves to sell you into the idea that they are good salespeople. I think that's more powerful, you know, in a weird way, than being really good at sales. You have to get people to want to have sales conversations with you. You have to get them to believe in you. And that's a long-term strategy as a sales rep. Sales leaders should want to make that happen. But I think it's just a tough thing to tell you to do that. I don't know where your organization is, you know, at the current moment.
So as I listen to you, one of the things that I just jotted down, Jack, and I want to make sure that I get this right, we get it clear, because I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this kind of thing we're going to right now. Top of funnel, the earlier on in the process, more social becomes one of those activities that we want to look at. So I look at it as every opportunity has very specific stages. Some are early stage, some middle stage, some late stage. Sounds to me like social is a really important activity that can help us identify, create, and maybe initiate that early stage opportunity. And that should be something that we're tracking and we're working on actively. Right? So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. Now, here's what happens. As we are going to make this be part of our sales process, so that means it's part of who we are, it's part of what we do, it's part of our playbook. Our playbooks now will have things about creating social strategies around our opportunity origination. How do we move from the online to the offline and make it so it's really an integrated part of our whole sales process?
Okay, so I want to stop you for 1 second. So I think the misconception is that social is good for prospecting, good for top of the funnel, which I absolutely disagree with. And I absolutely disagree with this for one reason only. We live in a complex world of buyers.
Yep.
You don't go into a sale and call the CEO and you get on one call with him and you close the deal. You get on the phone with the below the line in most cases,
right,
in your first call. They vet you out to see if this is even something, and then you have to wait to get more above the line, which is to their direct, and then you get to the decision maker, maybe 3, 4, 5 meetings. Then you have 8 people involved in the decision, 6. I mean, you can look at the numbers, 4, doesn't matter. So you, as a sales rep, when the conversation starts, a lot of times that's when the deal is lost, right? Because salespeople don't know how to trumpet. They don't know how to keep the conversation alive and to get multiple people involved. They're always going, oh, well, I had a great conversation with below the line. And I mean, we hear this all the time as sales leaders, right? Well, oh, killed that meeting. Okay, what were they a decision maker? Oh, yeah, they're a director. They're a director. Well, a director at an enterprise company is not going to get you the deal, buddy. You know? Yeah. So question is, how do we use social after the phone hangs up to make sure that we start to get connected deeper into the people that we want to talk to, right? I mean, how many sales leaders and salespeople? Actually, here's a great strategy, just takeaway. If you're a sales leader, how many times after a sales call, when your sales rep comes to you and says, dude, I just crushed it with the decision maker, how many times are you sending a LinkedIn connection to that same person and saying, hey, just wanted to introduce myself. I heard that my salesperson just had a great call with you. And I just wanted to let you know that we're excited for the next call with Mary Lou. Because you know what's going to happen? you are going to get deeper connected. Now they're going to start taking you a little bit more serious because they're going to talk to an executive. Executives like to talk to executives. But we've got to figure out this whole idea of through the sales process. Now, here's another thing about it. Most salespeople want to send an email, right? After that, I call it the give me. When can we get on the next call? When can I talk to the decision maker? When are you guys going to make a decision? No. So you go through your email inbox as a sales leader, as a sales rep, and actually as a sales leader, do this. I tell you, this is the best thing you can do with your salespeople. Let's go through your inbox. Somebody pop it up. Let's put it on the wall. How many times do you ask for something? And how many times do you get something, right? More time, more money. Give me your money. Give me your time. Okay, great. We've got to figure out how to fill the gaps in a sales process with value, right? We got to look at our sale. We got to look at our feed as the email drip campaign for a sales rep. If you're a sales rep and you just got off and nailed a call, you connected with them. What kind of content are you sharing right now, right after the call, without really even inadvertently letting them know? But hey, here's a case study of your competitor that I just shared after we connected on LinkedIn that says about how they got a 5x ROI, right? Get strategic. Strategically.
That's awesome, Jack. Jack, that is so good. So forget about just the top of the funnel. You're saying there should be a social component all the way through. And what I love is, I just took a great note down that I think is a good one. As a sales leader, are we finding out who the buyers are and everybody, and all of our key pursuits that our reps are working on? And are we also connecting with them, introducing ourselves, finding ways that we can be relevant? And that's an awesome way to, for sure, start to be differentiated in the sales process.
Yeah, because what happens, right? I mean, you guys talk about deal coaching. So you'll go through and which is my favorite thing about Xvoyant, is you can look at an overall visual view and say, okay, you have 9 deals in the pipeline, right? These are the ones that are in the different stages. Let's look at this deal. And the sales rep goes, you know what? I can't get them to talk to me anymore. I can't get them to reply. And all of a sudden the sales leader goes, okay, well, I see that I'm connected to so-and-so who's connected to them. I could see if I could do that, right? Okay, well, you're already 10 steps backwards. Because here's the deal. If you would have done it early when they were excited and there was some movement there was some energy there, and you would have gone in and you would have connected. And you would have connected, and then you would have said, okay, I'm going to stay in front of them. I'm going to engage on a few posts once in a while. Have your assistant do that, right? I'm going to engage. If I see that they have a big, executive, they just raised some money, I'm going to share that and say, wow, cool that, Xvoyant just raised another $5 million. I'm going to, tag them, and I'm just going to let them know that I'm there, right? I'm just staying in front of them, because when my rep needs me to pick up the phone, I've already got the connection. I've already got the conversation. I'm ahead of the curve. I just pick them up and say, hey, you know what? I know you talked to Jim back in the way we connected, and I just wanted to get your feedback. What happened? Because there was some excitement here. There was some movement here. And they don't go, oh, that asshole. They go, oh, I've got some association. I've got commonality with this person. And they can actually have a personalized conversation with me based on that.
Jack, I appreciate you righting my wrong and keeping it at the top of the file. I love it. So this is something that every sales leader should make part of their process. And we can absolutely add value to the sales process by inserting ourselves in this natural way. Because
here, let's talk about competitiveness. Yeah. So let's say you're in the MarTech or you're in the sales tech space. Now, I can tell you that as sales leaders, we're attracted to other sales content, right? We're attracted to industry trends and anything that'll make us better and more relevant as a sales coach, sales leader, industry expert. Well, here's the difference. If you get connected to those people and you're starting to do some videos, you're starting to put yourself into a video to do like what Rob did. If you want to see some examples, I tell you, go look at Xvoyant's page or Rob's personal page. He does 2-3 minute clips. He doesn't talk about his product, but everything that he talks about is super valuable. It's a lot of wisdom at a high level that every one of his buyers can take something out of. The commonality is that if you got connected to somebody early that your salesperson talked to, and you consistently put out 2 to 3 minute video clips every week, and you have good content, by the way, you can't just be an idiot with no wisdom, but you put this out, it's better than any email drip campaign. You're consistently educating them. What did you talk about the other day? 4 levers. What if sales leaders thinking about 4 levers when it comes to coaching? I can guarantee I've never heard that before. And I was reading the comments. Holy crap, Rob, I've never thought about that. Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if anybody was in the sales process, but I'll be damn really excited if I was your sales rep, right?
Yeah.
And I send an email and they go, oh my God, I just watched Rob's 4 levers video. Because if you don't believe that happens, you're full of crap, because it happens all the dang time. And I see it with every single one of our customers.
Jack, I'm telling you, that is such a great couple of strategies. We've got a couple. One is, make yourself making content. Some of the people of the leaders, they may be naturally inclined to that. Some, it may be harder for them to do. But I love the next suggestion you made. This is such an actionable tactic. Insert yourself early on by being valuable leader to leader, right? Is there any other kind of top of mind for you kind of tactic? Because both of the ones that you sent, those are ways to really differentiate and stand out in what is a really crowded space. We started with more competitive, true or false, and you said times 10. We had some fun with my famous true or false game, right? And you've given us 2 killer tactics on how leaders can use social to help make sure that they have higher win rates. And I'm guessing that you found it has quicker cycle time as well. Anything else?
Yeah, so I think the last thing I would talk about is, as a sales leader, I think the most effective thing in the world right now is shaking somebody's hand. I don't think like being in person has been more effective than it's ever been. And I'll use you as an example, and there's multiple examples of this, of my clients. But one day Rob said to me, you know what? Whenever I speak, I close a deal. I close 2 deals, right? Like I'm like, okay, Rob. Well, then we have our lead generation strategy on this end, right? Where we're doing webinars, you're doing podcasts. But if that's a great strategy, and I said, what are those? How big are those deals? Well, they're their biggest deals, and they're the fastest. They're moving through the pipeline the fastest, right? Okay. Oh, well, here's an idea, Rob. Why don't you speak more? Let's get strategic. Let's start putting you speaking, you doing webinars, you doing all this different types of content, your 2-minute videos. Let's put this in front of the people that are hiring for sales kickoffs. And let's figure out what companies you want to get into. And let's get you on the stage. Let's get you at the Sales Hacker Conference. Let's get you at the Sales Leadership Conference. Let's get you on the stages of the people that are your buyers. Because I'll tell you right now, we know that works. We know that if you could shake their hand, if they can listen to you for 1 hour or 30 minutes and they can shake your hand, your win rate goes up, whatever that is, right? I'm not going to put a number on it, but let's say 5x.
Yep, I'm with you.
So sales leaders, what are you doing to get on the stage? And the only way you get on the stage is if people know who you are. The only way that people know what you sell is if you're visible. The only way people know they want to buy from you is if you're valuable. And the only way that people connect with you is that they see you enough times and you give them enough wisdom over a certain period of time that they want to connect with you, which is typically what I like to call the offline conversation, is they want to have an offline conversation. And you just have to have enough cojones, just like anything in sales, to ask for it.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed that you've been reading and sharing my articles. I did a little bit of research on you guys, and it's funny because we work with X, Y, and Z. This is a LinkedIn message. We work with X, Y, and Z. I see that you've read it. I would love to get some feedback from you on the last video that you left a comment on, because I'm really, really working on, how do I articulate my message about my product? I would just love to get your feedback to another VP of sales, right?
Dig it.
You're not asking for anything. You're just using content to create conversation from a connection. And the next step is, if anybody in their right mind can get an offline conversation, you're good at sales, especially at sales leadership. The next thing is you have to work your way into the sales conversation. Socials will only get you so far, right?
Right.
But you got to figure out, and I think that's the gap, right? And moving from online to offline, and a lot of times that doesn't even have to be like, oh, hey, I would love, it doesn't even have to be in a message. What that means is that you go get on a stage, because if you're doing your online right, the offline and the handshake will happen on the stage or right after you get off the stage.
Jack, this has been awesome. I know we're running low on time. I love the passion. And I really appreciate you sharing some of the expertise. I mean, the concept of visible, valuable, connected, I love. But for you to now take the visible, value, and connected and say, visible by helping in the creation and sharing of content, valuable by inserting yourself into the process earlier and making yourself, so now we're exec to exec rather than wondering who your execs are. And then connected by saying, can we find ways to not just have a connection in a social space that maybe we don't even know who they are, but turning that into some version of a handshake. I love it.
Well, I'll give you the last thing is, as a sales leader, we always have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to make our salespeople's lives easier? What are we doing to make them better? And if you have no presence, You have no, connections. You don't have a deep connections with people that they're trying to sell to. You're not trying to get a deep connection with those people. You're not integrating yourself into the world where they live with the people that they're trying to sell to. You failed at leadership. You have absolutely 100% failed at leadership, because you know what? Salespeople can't do it on their own anymore. And we put all the blame on the salespeople. But the problem is the salespeople need you more than ever. They need your leadership more than ever. They need your visibility more than ever. They need your value more than ever. And you know what? They need your connections even more than any of that stuff. So if you're not using attention at scale to get connections, you're killing your sales team. And shame on you. And you know what? You need to rethink your strategy, because you're not just lazy. You're being selfish in the simple fact that your salespeople can't even leverage you as credibility to help them move something through the pipeline.
Let me tell you why I think that's a great way to end, Jack. You've heard me say this before, and I think this is a good time to say it. I think that the best lens for a leader to look through is if I'm not able to help my reps either improve or do something better because we work together than if I'd left them on their own, what value am I? And this is an amazing way of looking at a way to be valuable in a way I think that helps me differentiated, because I work with lots of sales leaders, Jack, as you know. We work with sales leaders around the world, and I don't find many that are doing exactly what you just said right now. So if you want to differentiate and give your reps a leg up, this seems like a great one, because I don't think most sales leaders are doing what you just said.
And here's the thing is, it's a competitive advantage right now. You're an early adopter, because here's the thing. Most of the people that are talking about sales are authors trying to sell their book. they're consultants trying to sell their consulting. There's very few real sales leaders that are scaling sales teams and showing the power of good sales leadership and good sales coaching at scale. They're not talking about it. You don't see very many VPs of sales at companies that are growing faster than anybody else getting on a chalkboard and saying, here's what we just did. Here's how we just hired 100 SDRs and got 80% of them to quota in under 6 months. The sales community needs that more than they've ever needed it before. I pound this into Rob's head. I said, listen, you have a massive amounts of wisdom. You already put your wisdom into a technology, which is amazing. Now put your wisdom on video and put out content that actually helps sales leaders, all the other sales leaders that could relate to you, that are feeling the pains. Use your information to move themselves forward, because all the other sales content out there, it's just not doing it, because those people can't relate.
Jack, so good. This is straight fire, man. I love the knowledge. I love how you've taken a concept called social selling. I'm actually calling it social support as I look at this, what you just said, man. It is social support. It's what you give your reps. Is your reps are doing social selling. Your job is to give social support, brother. Hey, Jack, you're going to have a lot. I hope that this was exciting for our listeners. I think it will. Will be. We see a lot of people that are wanting to get good at this. If they want to follow you, Jack, if they want to reach out to you, how do they get more of what you're putting down? How do they find more about Jack and the Creation Agency?
Well, the first thing I would say is connect with me on LinkedIn, right? So I'm super active on all channels. I would say model people. So if you want to, and the other thing is, when you're listening to a social selling expert, go look at all their social channels to make sure they back it up. You'd be very surprised. Yeah. So go take a look at my strategy, right? I've got, I don't hide my strategy on social. I use it to drive all of the business at Creation Agency. We've got one biz dev person. I work with sales teams. I work with marketing teams. But at the end of the day, I practice what I preach. And I'm only telling you something that has helped me build almost $1 million agency in the last 2 years.
It's amazing growth. It's amazing growth. Jack Kosakowski, CEO of the U.S. division of the Creation Agency, just dropping great tactics for sales leaders. How do you make social an actionable strategy rather than this fuzzy thing that we just got to figure out? Jack, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate your help.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks so much. And to everybody else, reach out to Jack, follow what he says, and let's go move the needle.